VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
And thank you for joining us on a Friday news roundup and comment program here on VCY America. And without exception, it's been another very, very busy month of news and reports of matters going on, both domestically and around the world. Our thanks to Sandy for pulling so many of these together here for us today, and lots to share your way. We've got Molly on the phones, and I think we got Justin in the control room today, and grateful for our team here at VCY America. Well, friends, as I mentioned, there's a lot that is taking place, and we must always remember not to take our sights off that which is most important for us today, and that is to advance the good news of the gospel. And as we take a glimpse as to world conditions, matters that are going on all around us here today, it just underscores the fact that this world truly does need Jesus. We're going to begin today. Of course, you no doubt have heard already about that impasse that's been happening with the funding of the Department of Homeland Security. And the vote that happened overnight, last night, early this morning, 2:19 a.m. local time in Washington, D.C., the Senate did pass a bill by voice vote and then adjourned for a 2-week recess for the Easter and Passover holidays, reports the Washington Times. The Senate passed a partial funding bill as they report, Republicans caved to Democrats' refusal to fund ICE and Border Patrol. And so this went over to Speaker Mike Johnson at the House of Representatives. I'll get to that in just a moment. But he, just when it came over to him, he already expressed opposition. He knew he was going to have it within his ranks. And the party spent all day in a stalemate. President Trump announced an executive order he was going to pay TSA agents. And they passed this legislation, but it excludes money for U.S. immigration and customs enforcement and much of customs and border protection. Friends, are they trying to make this country again like it was under the previous administration? FoxNews.com is reporting that House conservatives are ripping into the Senate-passed deal that ended the 42-day shutdown if it all passes through. But they cited concerns that the bill fails to fund immigration crackdown. The House Freedom Caucus said today it's going to withhold its support for this funding measure until ICE and Customs and Border Protection are given full year appropriations. They also want voter ID added to this bill, saying we can't believe that the Senate abdicated its responsibility this morning of not funding the Child Sex Trafficking Investigation Division of ICE, that they didn't fund the Border Patrol. That was a statement from HFC Chairman Representative Andy Harris of Maryland. He said the only thing we're going to support is adding that funding into the bill, adding voter ID, sending it back to the Senate, make them come back and do their work. Bottom line is that deal is bad for America, he said. So we continue to see the stalemate continue on. JNS.org reporting that Iranian Parliament Speaker Mohammad Baghdad Galbaf, who is reportedly leading the ongoing diplomatic talks with the United States, has praised Hamas's October 7, 2023 massacre of some 1,200 people as a victory, and recently threatened to make the Gulf run with the blood of invaders if Washington targeted regime assets on islands there. U.S. officials told multiple outlets Monday that he was one leading talks with President Trump on behalf of Tehran. Yet he is one that is praising October 7th. He is one that is continuing to threaten our troops. From Just the News, Iran has rejected a ceasefire proposal from the United States. The U.S. had sent this 15-point proposal to talk about the concessions that they would need to make on their nuclear program and agree to additional talks about its ballistic missile arsenal. In exchange, the U.S. would lift sanctions on Iran and end the conflict. But the Iranian embassy Wednesday posted a 5-point counter plan and said no, the U.S. would end hostilities and assassinations on government leaders, and then Iran would also require guarantees that another conflict would not start. Well, that's a no-starter as well, isn't it? Also, Also from Pamela Geller, the Islamic Republic of Iran just released a video simulating that is, a missile attack on the Statue of Liberty. The official Telegram channel of the IRGC posted an AI-generated video, One Vengeance for All, posted it March 24th. In the video, Iran launches a ballistic missile toward the United States, which strikes the Statue of Liberty and topples it into the ocean. From FoxNews.com, the IRGC Navy commander, Alireza Tangsiri, was targeted and killed in an Israeli attack. Israel's Defense Minister Israel Katz noted it was a precise and lethal operation. The IDF eliminated the commander of the IRGC Navy, along with senior members of the Naval Command, Katz noted. The man who was directly responsible for the terrorist act of mining and blocking the Strait of Hormuz to navigate has been targeted and eliminated. From the Geller report as well, regional dynamics are shifting fast as multiple Gulf and Arab states take a far more forceful stance against Iran. Countries including Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait, and Jordan have jointly condemned Iranian attacks as violations of sovereignty and international law that explicitly affirm their right to respond in self-defense. And at the same time, the UAE is signaling a deeper strategic alignment with the United States, emphasizing shared security interest and readiness to confront what it calls a broader global threat. So the attacks that Iran has made against her neighbors just does not seem to be working, folks. CBN.com is reporting that President Trump extended the deadline for attacks in Iran's energy sector by 10 days yesterday. The extension allows for continued diplomatic talks between the U.S. and Iranian regime to end the war. As part of those talks, the president revealed that Iran sent a gift of 8 oil tankers and then increased it to 10. Let's see. We also have from Fox News, the Pentagon considering sending up to 10,000 additional ground troops to the Middle East, a senior defense official said yesterday. That's according to the Wall Street Journal. While the official said it was not clear which units would be mobilized, the new deployment would be in addition to the 1,500 troops deployed by the 82nd Airborne Division. You know, as many are wondering just really what's going on. We're told, we've won, everybody is toppled, and yet at the same time we see the influx of now perhaps ground troops that are going in. We have the continued questions about the Strait of Hormuz. Let's see, this from the Haaretz.com, Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has been pushing U.S. President Donald Trump to continue the Iran war. The New York Times reported, citing people briefed by U.S. officials on the conversations. Saudi Arabia's de facto leader reportedly said the U.S. and Israel's attack on Iran presents a historic opportunity to reshape the Middle East. And they also mentioned that Prince Mohammed has urged President Trump to push for an overthrow of the regime in Iran, arguing that the Islamic Republic poses a long-term threat to the Gulf that can only be removed by toppling its government. Washington Times reporting Russia sending drones and other equipment to Iran this month amid a U.S.-Israeli air campaign that has severely damaged the Islamic Republic's drone and missile capabilities. That's according to a new report. OffThePress.com reporting President Putin of Russia reportedly has asked the country's ultra-wealthy oligarchs to donate funds to help boost the country's dwindling military budget as the country's 4-year-old war with Ukraine continues. He's reportedly rejected calls to end the war as emerging from ongoing peace talks involving the U.S. and other countries. Russia said it will not discuss an end to the war until it's taken all the hotly contested Donbas region in eastern Ukraine. Western Journal is reporting, according to the Daily Wire, they're quoting them, in the waning days of his presidency, the Biden administration entered a secretive sweetheart settlement with an alleged Iranian front group. The outlet reported that the Biden's government agreed to give up to $174 million worth of Manhattan real estate that it had previously seized after the group was alleged to have links to Tehran. Citing court documents, the Daily Wire reported that the sweetheart settlement was approved January 17, 2025. That was just a few days before President Trump was inaugurated. Judge Loretta Preska agreed to seal the settlement in its entirety. very troubling at this. It would agree to pay victims of Iranian terror who had sued the foundation, but slowly and mostly out of proceeds that come from the government agreeing to give back a portion of the building that was seized for its links to Iran. Well, it's this comes from townhall.com. I don't know if you've heard the clip of Obama's CIA director talking about Iran. It's this is the former CIA director, Brennan. We know that Operation Epic Fury was launched about a month ago. They've destroyed Iran's navy, its nuclear weapons ambitions, and the core of its political and military leadership. But now the cream of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps is also gone. The Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei dead. His son pretty much half dead, he reports. Its ballistic missile capability has been severely degraded. Its infrastructure and manufacturing base are being dismantled. The regime will collapse, but there's been a pause as talks reportedly resumed on a new deal between the U.S. and Iran. But here is the former CIA director on MS Now. Listen to what he had to say and who he trusts.
Iran, they are an authoritarian regime who's known to lie, but I'm confused. What is going on? Help me. Calm me down.
Well, I tend to believe Iran more than I do Donald Trump, because he could not acknowledge the truth even when it is he's slapped in the face with it repeatedly.
You know, the former CIA director, I tend to believe Iran more than I would Donald Trump. Isn't that amazing? This coming from the Daily Caller, shocking video from a radical anti-Iran war protest in Philadelphia showed participants explicitly supporting Islamic terror groups and calling for cheers every time an American service member comes home in a casket. Folks, this is tragic. Demonstrations and demonstrators at the Hands Off Iran protest in Philly. We got people in Philly listening right now. Carried signs condemning the war, attacking Israel, attacking President Donald Trump, even Democratic Senator John Fetterman. One speaker in a video that went viral Thursday explicitly praised terrorist groups Hamas and Hezbollah and advocated for a strong Iranian state to maintain their fighting capacity against Israel. Here's just one clip from the protest.
Until we have done everything in our power to bring the United States to its knees, let us not lose sight of the enemy. For every U.S. military base that crumbles, and for every U.S. soldier who returns home in a casket, we cheer! Hamas, Hezbollah, Ansar-Allah, all of the resistance forces we celebrate. These popular forces on the ground spend every waking moment in direct confrontation with Zionism, and they rely on a strong Iranian state to maintain their fighting capacity.
Do you hate America? May a Hamas rocket blow up your family's home.
Yeah, may Hamas blow up your family's homes. You know, every time a service member comes home in a casket, he yelled out, "We cheer." You know, friends, we weep. We weep when that happens. And to see the anger, the angst against the United States and the purporting, just standing in favor of an Iranian regime that killed tens of thousands of people just in cold blood and rejoiced in it. Here, just a young wrestler, a champion wrestler just killed because of his involvement in the protest in Iran. And they're saying when every time an American service member comes home in a casket, we cheer. Friends, something's wrong there. Something is very wrong. It is sinful. It is evil. Back in a minute. This is Crosstalk.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, author and seminar speaker with the Institute for Creation Research. Dr. Morris, are we making any progress with a creationist view of the unborn?
Yes, it seems we are, Chris, although there's positive and negative steps being taken. More and more people are being educated on the personhood of the unborn child and the need to protect it. Even efforts to clone humans are helping in the sense that there's much scientific evidence now for the unique personhood of the fertilized egg. Unfortunately, this doesn't always carry the day with legislatures and judges, for they often rule that such a person has no individual rights and can be aborted. We yearn for a day when even the courts go back to Genesis for their thinking.
Thank you, Dr. John. For more information on the foundational principles set forth in Genesis, simply visit us on the web at www.icr.org. That's www.icr.org. This is Chris O'Brien. God bless.
It's the News Roundup and Comment program here on VCY America. Thank you for tuning in today and really all this week here on the broadcast. We appreciate your tuning in. And friends, please get behind your local Christian radio station that provides you crosstalk. Get behind it, support them. I know some station group out in West Virginia are going to be having a share-a-thon next week. Friends, if you appreciate crosstalk airing on these stations, make sure you get behind your local station and support it. Let's continue on here. This is a troubling story from allisraelnews.com. A Palestinian hospital doctor caught by Israeli authorities several weeks ago while attempting to smuggle dozens of rare 2,000-year-old Hebrew coins through a checkpoint in Judea. Israeli border police officers and customs inspectors seized the ancient coins dating back to the Jewish Second Temple period and the Jewish revolts against the Roman Empire and bear the Hebrew inscriptions such as Shekel of Israel, Jerusalem the Holy, and Year 2 of the Freedom of Israel. That's according to archaeologists from the Israel Antiquities Authority. The inspector who heads the department said that authorities believe the ancient coins were stolen and intended for sale on the black market in Israel. This is interesting from CBN, something extraordinary that some are even describing as prophetic happening in the Promised Land. Yoav Rotem from the Negev desert to discussed on CBN something miraculous that's been 2,000 years in the making. He points to the extraordinary reappearance of ancient Judean date palm trees in Israel. Though through modern agriculture efforts, seeds found at the ancient site of Masada, dating back 2,000 years to the time of King Herod and the New Testament, have been successfully sprouted, and they are growing, folks. And some have pointed to the scriptures talking, I think it's from Isaiah 35, about the desert blooming. Very interesting about these biblical fruit reappearing in Israel after 2,000 years. Many continue to wonder whatever happened to Tucker Carlson. This from the Washington Times. He said he no longer views communist China as a major threat and is calling for the U.S. to share power with Beijing in a new world order and with a weakened America. Also said that the U.S. military is unable to defend Taiwan against a Chinese cross-strait assault. He had an interview with Britain's Economist magazine and said the U.S. has reached its limits of powers and is unable to defend the self-ruled island of Taiwan. And he said, I think we've reached the limits of our power. Power is not infinite. You can squander it, and we're in the process of doing that, he said amidst his harsh criticism of the military action with Israel against Iran. But calling upon the U.S. to share power with communist China? Let's see. This is going to outrage many. Washington Times, President Trump has found another thing to slap his name on, U.S. currency. Treasury Department announced yesterday that Mr. Trump's signature will soon adorn paper bills marking the first time a sitting president's name has been added. Secretary Scott Bessent said that the move is being made in honor of our country's 250th anniversary celebration this year and said that President Trump deserves the singular honor. FoxNews.com, illegal immigrants nabbed by ICE do not have to face bond hearings, a step that has become a potential legal impediment to President Trump's mass deportation agenda. That's a ruling from a second federal court Wednesday. Massive court victory against activist judges and for President Trump's law and order agenda, said Attorney General Pam Bondi. This is after the St. Louis-based 11th Circuit reversed a lower court's ruling and deemed that many captured illegal immigrants ineligible for such chances to be released. But the court has overturned that. Well, it's going to be happening again, friends. The No Kings rallies. This from Just the News. Organizers say they have planned over 3,000 so-called, I'm putting those words in, peaceful events nationwide this weekend. Protest in Minneapolis expected to be the nation's flagship event. And in Minneapolis, you're going to have, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders there, and Jane Fonda, and Bruce Springsteen scheduled to perform at the state capitol as well in St. Paul. Western Journal reporting in 2022, defending her government and her state's political atmosphere against a wave of high-value residents threatening to decamp, New York Governor Kathy Hochul was practically giddy in her defiance. She referred to her Republican adversaries and their Confederates. Hochul had this to say, quote, "Just jump on a bus and head down to Florida where you belong, okay? Get out of town because you don't represent our values," end of quote. Oh, friends, people are doing that, and now she has reversed course. Not only does she want those New Yorkers that she chased off to Florida to come back to New York, she wants them to drag their friends back with them. I mean, she spoke at a Politico event, and she said, "I need people who are high net worth to support the generous social programs that we want to have in our state," right? She said. Now, there are some patriotic millionaires who stepped up. Okay, cut me the checks if you want to be supportive, but maybe the first step should be to go down to Palm Beach and see who you can bring back home, because our tax base has been eroded. Now, whose fault is that? And earlier she told people to get out of town. You don't represent our values, leave. And so people did. And now whining for people to come back because their tax base is eroded. The IndependentSentinel.com, Hochul's affordability agenda struggling under New York's skyrocketing energy bills. She won't allow fracking. That would make New York energy independent. But she knows that there's some deadlines coming for their climate goals that were set. And those happen to come before the election. So now she wants to delay those climate goals. Move to alter and delay the implementation of New York State's landmark 2019 climate law that calls for gradually decreasing greenhouse gas emissions by certain deadlines. No, it's bad news for her state, and she knows it. And as a result, wants to put this off until after the election. So I only say this, buyers beware. Beware what is lurking here and what's going on. FoxNews.com, a large teen gathering in downtown Chicago descended into chaos Wednesday night, prompting a curfew enforcement order and intensifying the debate over how to stop repeat takeover in the Loop. The activity centered on the State and Lake Streets, where witnesses described crowds of young people running through the area, climbing on vehicles, engaging in fights. An alderman, Brian Hopkins, there said conditions escalated quickly before officials intervened. Chicago police confirmed multiple enforcement actions led to the gathering, including 8 juvenile arrests, 24 curfew violations. These mobs are just taking over. And, friends, it just happened in a San Francisco convenience store as well. Mobs of people just coming in and ransacking the store and throwing merchandise at the one employee that was in the store as well, and then leaving. I mean, it was horrible to watch the footage of this. The Geller Report also reporting of a Muslim march that took place in all places, the state of Idaho. And friends, the mob there calling for Sharia. That is Islamic law. DailyCaller.com. The book of Genesis talks about how it was where every man, just did that which did evil continuously. Just did that, and every imagination of his heart. Friends, we are seeing that happen all over this planet. Here we have from the Daily Caller. Officials charged an illegal alien from Honduras after an elderly veteran he allegedly shoved onto the New York subway tracks died. This is Barian Hernandez. A second-degree murder charge is now being faced by him, accused of attacking an 83-year-old veteran of the Air Force, Richard Williams, as well as a 30-year-old man. The attack occurred late at night. No train was entering, but he allegedly pushed him onto the tracks from behind, suffered bleeding in the brain, required surgery. They determined there was no activity in his brain afterwards, placed on life support, but ultimately succumbed to the injuries, according to the local ABC News 7 station. Daily Caller reporting the outgoing commander at large of the U.S. Border Patrol, Greg Bovino, said his only regret was that he didn't catch more illegal immigrants. Washington Times telling us several Supreme Court justices expressed skepticism Monday about states that allow ballots to be received and counted days after Election Day, though they worried about where to draw the line and whether tossing out late-arriving ballots would also eliminate early voting. In the specific case before the justices, ballots in Mississippi can be counted if received up to 5 days after Election Day, as long as they were mailed or sent by a common carrier such as FedEx by Election Day. If they're sent by FedEx, does it really take 5 days in the state to get to you? Opponents said that violates the idea that election is consummated on Election Day. Matter of fact, Justice Alito blasted the endless counting of mail-in ballots, and here's what was said in the courtroom as this went oral arguments before the U.S. Supreme Court.
We have lots of phrases that involve two words, the second of which is day. Labor Day, Memorial Day, George Washington's birthday, Independence Day, birthday, and Election Day. And they're all particular days. So if we start with that, if I have nothing more to look at than the phrase Election Day, I think this is the day in which everything is going to take place, or almost everything.
Okay, we're going to have to wait and see how this court is going to render their decision, but a lot of skepticism from the justices. By the way, news reported here just since we started Crosstalk that President Trump has now signed an executive order that TSA be paid. That's breaking news from Fox News that delivered that. Conservative Daily News telling us that in addition to Mississippi, that's where the Supreme Court case coming about, the states that allow postmarked non-military ballots cast within the U.S. to be received after Election Day, well, that includes Alaska, California, Illinois, Maryland, Massachusetts, Nevada, New Jersey, New York, Oregon, Texas, Virginia, Washington State, and West Virginia. That's according to the National Conference of State Legislatures. Also, 3 U.S. territories, Guam, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands, also have laws allowing such late ballots to count. Pamela Geller reports a Minnesota election judge pleaded guilty to allowing 11 unregistered people to vote in November 2011. This is the same state that allows one registered voter to vouch for up to 8 persons without an ID. Trouble out of Finland, and this from the Daily Signal. Attorneys are warning about the severe chilling effect of the Finnish Supreme Court's ruling against Pave Räisänen, a Christian member of parliament who long faced hate speech charges for tweeting a Bible verse. The Supreme Court upheld her acquittal for posting a Bible verse in 2019, but the 3-2 majority convicted her, along with a Lutheran bishop, of hate speech for expressing their beliefs on Christianity and sexuality in a 2004 church pamphlet. A pamphlet, folks, from 22 years ago now. It is a right that the court has acquitted her for her 2019 Bible verse, Paul Coleman, executive director of the ADF International, said. But the conviction for a simple church pamphlet published decades ago, before the law under which she has been convicted was even passed, is an outrageous example of state censorship. Finnish Supreme Court has convicted her of hate speech. We'll be back with more, friends. This is Crosstalk coming your way from VCY America.
Relationships have been shattered due to lack of forgiveness, impacting marriages, family relationships, even the church. Some have said that forgiveness is the most difficult commandment we are given as Christians. And why is that? Perhaps it is because it strikes at the core of our pride that says we deserve better than we are getting. In the book, Forgiven People Forgive, Pastor Jeff Miller shows us the heart of why we should forgive, which is the fact that God has forgiven us, and we are commanded to forgive. It is easy for bitterness to take root in a heart that is unforgiving. Forgiven People Forgive is available for a donation to VCY of just $9, 3 copies for a donation of $24, or 5 copies for a donation of $33. Call 1-800-729-9829. Ask for Forgiven People Forgive.
You're listening to Crosstalk on VCY America. You know, last week on Crosstalk, what a wonderful interview we had with Marilyn Boyer on that 4-book set, Profiles of Valor. Profiles of Valor. Just wanted to remind you, it's been featured as a book of the month at our VCY bookstore. And this 4-book set, 10 true stories in each, character qualities exhibited through those that were very much engaged in our founding and made such significant contributions. Just a reminder that that reduced amount for that book set is ends this coming Tuesday, the 31st, and they had it. Well, if you bought the individual books, it's half off what that is. But a tremendous deal at the VCY bookstore. They're part of our nonprofit ministry here at VCY America, and you can reach out to them, vcy.com, vcy.com, or you can even ring them right now, 1-888-722-4829, 1-888-722-4829. Profiles of Valor, but the last day to get it at that severely discounted price is this coming Tuesday. LifeSiteNews.com, the Democrat-dominated Maryland House of Delegates voted 100-35 to pass the so-called Equal Education Opportunities Bill that pro-family groups warned would give the state control over the values of public and private schools alike, including religious education institutions. HB 649 is an act concerning advancing equal education opportunities for all students in Maryland. And so, friends, it covers everything based on race, color, national origin, ethnicity, ancestry, religion, sex, pregnancy, sexual orientation, gender identity, disability, age, or marital status in education. Schools may not exclude an individual from participation on the basis of any of those specified qualities. Watch out, Christian-based schools. And here we also have Washington State. This is from the Christian Post. Attorneys representing a middle school student in Washington State say a school administrator reprimanded her for distributing gospel tracts. This was a girl in school handing them out between breaks and at lunchtime, and the principal got involved with this, or rather the vice principal, and very troubling as the principal just indicated that this is not, the vice principal says this is not something that the student was allowed to do. And so this is going into litigation with the ACLJ, who have at least sent out a demand letter at this point. And evidently, the vice principal allegedly entered the classroom, removed the student, and informed the student she was not permitted to distribute religious tracts at school. Even though other students are distributing other matters as well. Let's get into some life-related issues. This from LifeNews.com. A couple celebrating the birth of triplet girls after resisting pressure from doctors to abort one of them. Doctors advised this couple to have selective termination, meaning to choose to end the life of at least one child, claiming their babies only had a 50% chance of survival if they didn't. But the couple refused and welcomed Ellie, Everlyn, and Ella into the world on March 28th. The mother said, I'm sorry, not March 28th. That was just here recently. The mother said that we thought if we lose one or all of them, it means that they weren't meant to survive, but they came out kicking and screaming. South Dakota became the 7th state to teach kids about fetal development. This is part of the Baby Olivia law. And so young people in South Dakota schools join with other states in learning about fetal development. LifeSiteNews.com, the California First Lady Jennifer Sable Newsom, back in the media. She had sat down for an interview here some years ago. It just resurfaced now, and They're trying to redefine pro-life, and they say pro-life is about prenatal care, it's about universal preschool, it's about universal after-school, universal health care. That's what it means to be pro-life. It's not about conception. Well, they also have indicated that they're living in this evangelical conservative silo that ultimately is just pulling us back as a country to a time and place where we don't deserve to be and we're not gonna be. This is interesting. LifeNews.com this headline caught our attention. Huggies, Pampers, and Loves are funding abortion. After the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, Procter & Gamble, the company behind Pampers and Loves, expanded employee health care coverage to include travel for abortion. Meanwhile, Kimberly-Clark, the manufacturer of Huggies, has been matching employee contributions to Planned Parenthood for decades. Doesn't that sound ironic? And friends, a new report from the Guttmacher Institute. Now, this is the research arm for Planned Parenthood, and they report that more than 1.12 million babies were killed in abortions in 2025. That's more than 3,000 unborn children losing their lives every single day. That's just over 2 children every single minute. Also from LifeSiteNews.com, the number of abortions committed out of Massachusetts doubled in 2024 thanks to the spread of the abortion pill. And a couple of Planned Parenthood shutting down in Indianapolis. That is good news as well. The abortionist Kermit Gosnell died in prison after killing thousands of babies. He was put in prison during late-term abortions. He had what was called the House of Horrors, said that he even kept babies' feet as trophies. I think it was like in formaldehyde, something of that nature, and just was really gross and despicable, but he passed away this week. I do want to cover a story that's very interesting as well. This is a left-wing library director in Tennessee. I'm looking at LifeSiteNews.com. There's many articles have been written on this, but this one I've chosen, or Sandy has chosen here for a day, is refusing to comply. This library director refusing to comply with their local library board's directive to relocate more than 190 books away from children, for which LGBT activists are hailing her as a hero. Last November, Tennessee Secretary of State Hargert called on public libraries around the state to undertake an immediate age-appropriate view over the next 60 days of all materials in your juvenile children section, identify any materials that would be inconsistent with Tennessee's age-appropriate laws in violation of the federal law, and to anything contrary to other applicable state or federal laws. Well, following the review, the Rutherford County Library System Board voted 6-3 March 18th in favor of removing more than 190 books to adult sections, citing violent content as well as messages that promote gender confusion. However, the Rutherford County Library System Director Luann James declared in a letter the same day she would not comply with the board's decision. Now, as a result, friends, the library board is coming together this coming Monday. The Rutherford County Library System is meeting this coming March 30th in a special meeting, which it's going to decide whether to suspend, fire, or otherwise penalize the librarian over this issue. It's 5 p.m. at the Rutherford County Courthouse. Some of you that know people in that area, they can be at that meeting. They will take comments from the public, but also, friends, be praying about this important decision where a woke library director disobeying the board in that regard, wanting to have these LGBT books available for children. Man, I've got so many stories here I would love to get to you yet, but there is a clip I want to play for you of the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth. He has been doing reform within the chaplain corps, and I think it's important that you hear this message because he is saying things that is just not getting out in the news, and you need to know what's going on. He's been advancing, giving the chaplains the ability to minister again to the people that are in their, that they're responsible for. And here's an address, or rather a statement that Pete Hegseth made just recently.
As I reported to you in December, in previous administrations, our chaplain corps was infected by political correctness and secular humanism. The core functions of the Chaplain Corps were changed and watered down until they were viewed by many as nothing more than therapists. Faith and virtue were traded for self-help and self-care. We started correcting that drift then, and today we're going further. The crucible of combat tests more than the body. It tests conviction, character, and spirit. The military's Chaplain Corps serves as the spiritual and moral backbone of our nation's armed forces. Chaplains help forge spiritual readiness across the force. And that matters because in combat, in crisis, and in loss, a warfighter needs more than a coping mechanism. They need truth, big T truth. They need conviction. They need a shepherd. And as I've said before, spiritual health is equally important to a service member's physical and emotional health. This update is part of our efforts to return the Chaplain Corps to its core mission of serving the spiritual needs of our warfighters, 82% of whom identify as being religious. Today, I want to update you on 2 reforms we are undertaking to further make sure we're making the Chaplain Corps great again. In December, I told you that we were going to revamp the military's current faith and belief coding system, renaming it the Religious Affiliation Codes. The previous system had ballooned to well over 200 faith codes, 200. It was impractical and unusable, and many codes were never used at all. An overwhelming majority of the military population used only 6 of the codes. Our internal review committee recommended that going forward, the department use 31 religious affiliation codes. This brings the codes in line with its original purpose, giving chaplains clear, usable information so they can minister to service members in a way that aligns with that service member's faith background and religious practice. The second reform I want to tell you about today concerns chaplain rank insignia. The memo I will sign today directs chaplains, all of whom are officers, to replace the rank insignia on their uniforms with their religious insignia. Their rank will not be shown. This speaks to the difficult balance of the duality of a military chaplain. A chaplain is first and foremost a chaplain, and an officer second. This change is a visual representation of that fact. Specifically unique to the role of a chaplain, they are first and foremost called and ordained by God. And while they will retain rank as an officer, to those they serve, their rank will not be visible. Instead, they will be seen among the highest ranks because of their divine calling. This reform is intended to uplift and celebrate the chaplain's role as a chaplain. It also removes any unease or anxiety junior officers or enlisted personnel may have in approaching an officer, potentially a senior officer, for guidance on sensitive matters, such as addiction, relationships, or struggles with faith. These 2 reforms are big progress, but we're not even close to being done. These are the first steps toward restoring the esteemed position of chaplain as moral anchors of our fighting force. Theirs is a high and sacred calling, but they can only be successful if they're given the freedom to boldly guide and care for their flock. And to our chaplain, you have a sacred calling. So preach the truth, be steadfast in your faith, and shepherd the flock entrusted to you.
Friends, you're probably not going to hear that on the nightly news, but wanted you to hear that. And doing reform within the Chaplain Corps, you're a chaplain first and officer second. Isn't that true for us who know Christ as Savior? You're a Christian first, and second, you're an auto mechanic or a truck driver or a teacher, but being a Christian first? Well, let's open some phone lines here today on Crosstalk. If you want to comment on these or other current event stories, the number 800-733-9829, 800-733-9829. We'll be right back.
For the Worldview Report, I'm Brandon House. Our website's worldviewtube.com. Recently, I interviewed my friend Carl Tykrib with forcingchange.org. He went to a pagan conference of 1,000 witches in Minneapolis, St. Paul. He had many things to say, but the most shocking was how many attendees who were now involved in pagan spirituality, Wicca religion, witchcraft were once described Christians, or they attended a church, or they were even a pastor. And he said the common theme when he would talk to them was, I went to my pastor or my youth pastor and I asked for answers about this or that. And they had no concrete answers. They just said, have faith. In other words, folks, they didn't point them back to the Bible. They didn't provide a biblical framework for all areas of life and addressing the very specific issues they have. Yet the Bible says it will make us complete for all good works. We need to be involved in giving people answers, or they will flee to paganism.
It's a news roundup and comment program here on VCY America. By the way, Christian Post reporting that Dallas, Texas, crews began removing rainbow-painted crosswalks in Dallas Monday of this week, part of a statewide mandate to eliminate decorative pavement markings deemed a violation of traffic safety standards. Also coming out here this week, this from LifeSiteNews.com, gender-confused males will now no longer be eligible to compete in women's Olympic events. According to an announcement by the International Olympic Committee yesterday, that policy will go into effect with the 2028 Summer Games that will be held in Los Angeles. And from the Christian Post as well, an agency of the United Methodist Church has expressed support for federal legislation that would eliminate a ban on cosmetic sex change surgeries for trans-identified minors. Bishop Julius Trimble, General Secretary of the United Methodist Church's General Board of Church and Society, published an article Monday denouncing discrimination against trans-identified people. That division of the United Methodist Church. Our number to crosstalk, 800-733-9829. Let's go to Chris calling from Hayward, Wisconsin. Chris, you're on the air.
Hey, Jim. Thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to quickly comment on that story you mentioned about the guy who pushed the elderly man onto the tracks. Yeah, you know, we need to get these illegals out of our country. I'm glad Donald Trump is doing that. But at the same time, I think we also need to have the death penalty implemented in every state per Genesis 9:6. Because, you know, when you commit murder, you're killing the image of God. And I think that if we did that, I think that the murder rate would drop precipitously. I mean, quickly, we had a guy here in my county, up here in Sawyer County, about 14 years ago, who stabbed an elderly woman to death in her bed, and he's in prison for life. But it frustrates me that your tax dollars and my tax dollars are paying to keep these demons alive. They should be put to death, and I think that would deter potential would-be murderers in this country. So that's my comment. Thanks, Jim.
Okay, thank you for the call. And the verse that he shared was from Genesis 9, verse 6, whoever sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed, for in the image of God made he man. Let's go to Alice in Arkansas. Alice, you're on the air.
Oh, thank you so much for taking my call. So many things you have said bring such horrible sadness to my heart. How much we need a revival. But I want to put in a prayer request. Young people are going to New York City on spring break. I know of one group that was supposed to leave today, a mother tomorrow. Please pray for these young, innocent people as you talk about the Statue of Liberty that could be ruined. Oh, I can't say it enough. Oh, how we need God. Yeah. May He help us in these last days, seemingly, of America. It looks like we're falling from within.
Yeah. We are crumbling from within, Alice, and we do encourage prayer. We do need revival across our land. Keep in mind that story I referred to was an AI-generated photo coming from Iran showing it as used as propaganda to instill fear inside us as well. So thank you so much for your call. We've got Brad in West Dallas. Brad, you're on the air.
Hey, Brother Jim. I heard what Pete Higgs has said, and my question now is, what can you be and still be a chaplain? Can you be a Muslim and still be a chaplain? Because I was talking with my wife, and she said that she heard over the air that there is this woman in the military somewhere, and she has said clearly that she's not going to obey orders to attack or kill or shoot Muslims. We don't need that, and we don't need chaplains who don't represent Christ Jesus.
Thank you, Brad. And I know he mentioned a couple hundred categories reduced now to, 20s or 30s, and I don't have a listing of what those groups are, but you raised a valid point, and I did see that video of, and it looked like it was somebody who posted it themselves about, will I obey a lawful, I disobey an order coming to me to go after Muslims, and she just puts her thumb up to the camera like, yeah, I will disobey that lawful order.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Another one, and this is a lawful order. Remember, people were up in the air about that other guy that said that, you don't have to obey illegal orders.
Right.
That was bad enough. Yeah. Now it's legal orders.
Yeah. Thanks,
Where are
Brad.
we going?
Yeah, that's a good question. Where are we going? Thanks for the call.
Thank you.
Sam is next. Hi, Sam. You're on the air.
Yeah, good afternoon, Jim. It seems like we're in a Teutonic tug of war between paganism and Judeo-Christian values. And the people that are proponents of abortion, anti-ICE, just the countenance on their faces and screaming at the cameras, it's just very unsettling. But keep on just preaching the good news. There's always a good hope.
Yeah, there is, Sam. And thank you so much for reminding us of that. And friends, that hope is found in Jesus. We see so much that is taking place, as I mentioned at the very outset of the program today, here across this country and around the world. And the most basic need is not a new law in Congress. It's not to fund this or to fund that, and it's certainly not to see matters settled between countries. The basic need is for people to need Jesus. They need the Savior, and He has come to this earth. Certainly born as a babe, but came as the Father sent His Son to be the Savior of the world. Next Friday on Crosstalk, we're going to have a very special program here, His Story, Our Redemption, as we remember the death, the burial, the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And it's going to include scripture reading from the Gospel of John by Brad Canterbury. It's going to include music from the Life Action Singers. And Dalton Windsor has put together just a wonderful presentation next Friday here on Crosstalk that we trust you'll be able to tune in and listen for it. But indeed, friends, the hope of the world is Jesus, and we need to point people to Him. He is the only way, the truth, and the life. We want to thank you for tuning in to Crosstalk today and all this week here on the VCY America Network. And take time, as I mentioned, contact your local station. Let them know how much you appreciate the program, being kept informed on issues that many people tell us we just don't hear them anyplace else. But, friends, we thank you for your prayers and support that make this ministry possible. By the way, it is Friday today. The Lord's Day is coming. And trust you'll be in a Bible-believing, Bible-teaching local church. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Take Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208, or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.